My name is Melinda Mullins, and I'm 28 years old. On the night before my wedding, at exactly 11:43 p.m., my mother left me a voicemail. She said, "Melinda, it's not too late to cancel. Don't humiliate us like this." Earlier, my father had already sent me a 4-page letter explaining that my decisions were, in his words, intellectually incompatible with our family's values. I listened to my mother's message 3 separate times before finally accepting the truth. She wasn't coming. I had sent out 68 invitations to my side of the family, and not a single one responded. Instead, my mother sent a group email to everyone stating, "We cannot, in good conscience, attend." Their reasoning was simple. My fiancé worked night shifts as a hospital security guard. To them, that made him insignificant. What they didn't know was that strangers would stop him on the street just to thank him. They had no idea why his phone rang at 2 a.m. with panicked, urgent voices on the other end. They never even cared enough to ask. So, on September 14th, 2025, I walked down the aisle by myself, passing 34 empty chairs over a stretch of 90 feet. Just 48 hours later, a 10-second clip from my wedding reception went viral. Suddenly, the man my family had dismissed as a nobody became the only person anyone could talk about. That was the moment they finally understood the weight of what they had done, but by then, it didn't matter anymore. It was already too late. If you're watching this, don't forget to subscribe and let me know where you're tuning in from. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I read every single one. Now, let me take you back 14 months earlier to a hospital waiting room at 2:17 in the morning. That was where I met a man in a security uniform who would end up changing my life completely. It was February 19th, 2024, in the emergency room of a hospital in Pennsylvania. My roommate had been involved in a bike accident. It wasn't life-threatening, but serious enough to bring us to the ER in the middle of the night. By that point, I had already been sitting in the waiting area for 3 hours. The setting was miserable: green vinyl chairs, harsh fluorescent lights that made everyone look drained and lifeless, and a coffee machine with an out-of-order sign taped across it. I was staring blankly at my phone, not really processing anything on the screen, when someone suddenly stopped in front of me. "You've been here 3 hours," he said. "Have you eaten?" I looked up. He was a security guard, probably in his mid-30s, with dark hair and worn boots. His hospital ID badge was clipped to his belt but turned backward, so I couldn't read his name. His face showed exhaustion, but there was kindness in it, the kind of tiredness that comes from working long night shifts, not from simply missing sleep. "No, I haven't," I replied. "The vending machines aren't working." "I'll bring you something from the staff room," he said. 6 minutes later, he returned with a wrapped turkey sandwich and a paper cup of coffee. "Thank you," I told him. "You didn't have to do that." "You looked like you needed it," he answered. We talked for about 6 or 7 minutes. He didn't share much about himself, only mentioning that he worked nights and handled operations and related responsibilities. But there was something different about the way he spoke: calm, precise, and deliberate, as if every word was carefully chosen. It felt like he didn't waste energy on anything unimportant. "Do you like working nights?" I asked him. "That's when the work matters most," he replied. I didn't fully understand what he meant, and I didn't press him for an explanation. When a nurse finally called me back to see my roommate, I stood up. He was still there, hands tucked into his pockets, watching the ER doors as if he were tracking something invisible to everyone else. "I'm Melinda," I said. "Nathan," he replied. As a nurse walked past us, she noticed him and started to say, "Doctor," but he stopped her with a single glance. She immediately cut herself off mid-sentence and kept walking. I noticed the interaction, but I didn't understand it at the time. "Take care," Nathan said. I assumed that was the end of it. A brief encounter with a kind stranger in a hospital at 2 a.m., one of those moments you remember but never revisit. But 3 days later, he found me on social media and asked if I wanted to meet for coffee. Our first date was on April 3rd at Reading Terminal Market, around 12:30 in the afternoon. He arrived right on time, wearing jeans and a worn gray jacket. He still looked tired, and I wondered if he had worked the night before. We wandered through the market, bought Philly cheesesteaks from one of the vendors, and sat on a bench near Bassett's ice cream. He spoke about Philadelphia with quiet affection, like someone who loved the city deeply but rarely had the time to truly enjoy it. I told him about my own job in academic publishing, nothing flashy but something I genuinely enjoyed. "You work that much?" I asked when he mentioned that he didn't get out much during the day. "Something like that," he said. During lunch, his phone buzzed 4 separate times. He checked it once, frowned slightly, and typed a response I couldn't read. It was filled with numbers and abbreviations, almost like medical shorthand. Then he slipped his phone away and gave me his full attention again. "Sorry," he said. "It's okay," I replied. "Is everything all right?" "Yeah, just work. 2 hours." He paid in cash and didn't check his phone again. When we said goodbye, he smiled, really smiled, for the first time. "Can I see you again?" he asked. I said yes. What we had started slowly at first, then all at once. Nathan worked impossible hours. Sometimes he would vanish for 36 hours straight. Overnight shifts, he would say, emergencies that needed handling. I didn't push. I assumed it was hospital-related work, maybe management, something that kept him constantly on call. He lived simply. A studio apartment in South Philly, barely any furniture, books everywhere, mostly medical textbooks and journals. I asked him about them once. "Just interested in health stuff," he said. "You read trauma surgery journals for fun?" I like to understand how things work. By December 2024, we had been together almost 10 months. I was in love, completely, foolishly in love, with a man who worked night shifts and read surgical protocols the way other people read novels. "Move in with me," I said one night in December. He looked at me for a long time. "You sure?" "I'm not around much." "I'm sure." He moved in with one duffel bag, a stack of medical journals, and a pager that beeped at random hours and sent him out of the apartment at 2 in the morning without explanation. I loved him for who he was, quiet, kind, steady. I never needed to know exactly what he did. I only knew he was good at it. My family would care about what he did. I didn't. On March 22nd, 2025, I finally told my mother about Nathan. "I'm seeing someone," I said over the phone. "Oh, how wonderful." Her voice brightened. "What does he do?" I hesitated for just a second. "He works at Pennsylvania Hospital Security." Silence. "Security operations?" she repeated slowly. "Is that management?" "It's hospital work, Mom." "Of course. I'm sure he's very dedicated." That tone. I knew that tone. It was the same voice she used when turning down charity events she thought were beneath her. Polite, carefully neutral, poisonous. "We'd love to meet him," she said. "Great. I'll set something up." I hung up. Nathan was in the kitchen making eggs. He didn't look up. "They want to meet you," I said. "I heard. It'll be fine." He plated the eggs and handed me a fork. "It won't be fine, Melinda, but we'll do it anyway." May 18th, 2025. 7 p.m. My parents' house in Bin Mar on Pembroke Road. A restored Victorian, faculty art on the walls, the kind of place that smells like old money and even older expectations. Nathan arrived on time. He brought wine, a modest bottle, nothing expensive. He wore his best, which was still clearly not expensive enough. I saw my mother's eyes flick to his shoes. Worn, not designer. My father shook his hand with a firm grip and an appraising look. "Melinda tells us you work in hospital security." "Yes, sir. Operations and safety protocols." "And your educational background?" "State University. Scholarship." My mother smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Dinner was miserable. My parents talked about tenure, publications, and sabbatical plans in Provence. Nathan listened. He didn't try to impress them. He answered questions politely. He didn't play their game. Halfway through dinner, our neighbor, Professor Adelaide Winters, mentioned her son's health problems, dizziness, balance issues, 3 doctors, no answers. Nathan set down his fork. "Sounds like vestibular neuritis, not vertigo. Has he seen an ENT?" The table went quiet. "How did you know that?" my mother asked. "I work in a hospital. You pick things up." He didn't say anything more. He went back to eating. My mother stared at him for 3 seconds, then changed the subject. Dinner ended at 9:30. We drove home in silence. I felt the weight of what had just happened pressing down on both of us. At 10:43, my phone lit up. Mom, we need to talk about your future. Call me when you have a moment. This is important. Nathan reached over and held my hand. He didn't say it would be okay. He knew it wouldn't. On June 3rd, my father's letter arrived, 4 pages, typed single-spaced on his University of Pennsylvania Economics Department letterhead. I read it twice before I could breathe. We raised you to value education, discourse, and intellectual partnership. We worry that a marriage built on such desperate foundations will not withstand the challenges of time. This is not about love, it is about compatibility of life paths. Nathan seems like a kind man, but kindness alone cannot bridge the gap between your world and his. We say this because we love you and want you to have a partner who can meet you where you are, intellectually, socially, professionally. Please reconsider this path before it becomes too difficult to turn back. The word desperate appeared 3 times. I called Nathan. He was at work. I could hear the sounds of a hospital in the background, beeping monitors, distant voices. My dad sent me a letter. What did it say? I told him everything. He listened without interrupting. Do you want to marry me? He asked when I finished. Yes. Then we get married. That was it. No anger, no defensiveness, just quiet certainty. I loved him more in that moment than I ever had before. June 10th. My mother invited me to coffee. Rittenhouse Square, 3 p.m. I showed up thinking we would talk, maybe argue, maybe find some middle ground. She had brought someone. Melinda, this is Dr. Trevor Ashford. His mother and I serve on the board together. Trevor, this is my daughter. At 10 minutes, 19 seconds, Trevor rose to his feet and offered a polished smile, a pen, and a badge clipped to his belt like some kind of prize. A pediatric surgeon with an Ivy League background, he had everything. Summers in Maine, a flawless pedigree. I sat down, because leaving right away would have felt overly dramatic. I managed to stay for exactly 11 minutes. At 10 minutes, 33 seconds, Trevor's family owns a house in Bar Harbor. My mother said, "You two would have so much in common." I replied, "I'm engaged, Mom." She answered, "You're not married yet." I stood, left my coffee untouched, and walked out. My mother didn't come after me. That was the moment I realized they weren't going to stop. At 10 minutes, 47 seconds, the family group chat blew up. By the time I checked it that night, there were 23 unread messages. Aunt Patricia asked if anyone had actually met this man. Cousin Emily said she'd heard he worked security, like night shifts. Uncle Douglas added that Melinda had always been independent. My brother, I'll call him Andrew, didn't write in the chat at all. Instead, at 11 minutes, 8 seconds, he posted on Instagram a sunset photo with the caption, "Sometimes you just have to watch people make their own mistakes." It got 340 likes. At 11 minutes, 18 seconds, comments poured in from family and friends. I left the group chat. My mother added me back. I left again. Nathan came home at 2:14 a.m. His phone had rung at exactly that time, and I woke up hearing him answer. His voice always changed during those calls, sharp, focused, completely professional. How long? Okay. Intubate. If sets drop below 88, I'll be there in 12 minutes. At 11 minutes, 43 seconds, he was dressed and out the door in under 3 minutes. I heard the car start. He returned 6 hours later, completely exhausted. There was a small stain of blood on his shirt cuff, barely noticeable. He saw me looking and said, "Rough night." I didn't ask anything, but I couldn't stop wondering. Security guards don't usually have blood on their cuffs. They don't give instructions about intubation either. At 12 minutes, 2 seconds, I pushed the thought aside. On July 22nd, at 12 minutes, 7 seconds, I once picked Nathan up from the hospital at 6:15 p.m. He was standing outside the main entrance wearing scrubs. I had always assumed hospital security sometimes wore scrubs. It seemed normal enough. A nurse walked by, noticed him, and stopped. "Doctor across the family in Bay 3 wants to thank you before they leave." He replied, "Tell them I'll stop by." She nodded and continued on. I stared at him. At 12 minutes 32 seconds, I said, "That nurse just called you doctor." He answered, "She's new." Probably confused the badge system. His hospital ID was flipped backward on his belt, so I couldn't read it. I almost pressed him, almost asked directly, but then I noticed how exhausted he looked. At 12 minutes, 47 seconds, the dark circles under his eyes stood out, the kind of deep, bone-level fatigue that doesn't fade easily. So I let it go. I wish now that I hadn't. On August 12th, 2025, at 12 minutes, 54 seconds, I sent out 68 invitations to my side of the family. They were printed on beautiful cream cardstock with calligraphy addresses. Each one cost $4. I addressed every envelope by hand: parents, my brother, aunts, uncles, cousins, my mother's faculty friends, my father's colleagues, and family friends I'd known since childhood. The RSVP deadline was August 28th. At 13 minutes, 16 seconds, Nathan watched me seal the envelopes. "You don't have to invite them," he said. "They're my family," I replied. "Okay." He didn't argue, but I saw it in his eyes. He already knew what was coming. On August 20th, at 3:22 p.m., at 13 minutes, 24 seconds, my mother sent out an email. I wasn't included in the recipients, and she didn't CC me. I only found out because my cousin Emily forwarded it to me 2 hours later with a message. "White EF, is this serious?" At 13 minutes, 41 seconds, the email read, "We cannot in good conscience attend. Dear family and friends, after much painful deliberation, we must inform you that we will not be attending Melinda's wedding on September 14th. We love our daughter deeply, but we cannot in good conscience support a marriage that represents such a significant departure from our family's values and expectations. We hope you will understand and respect our decision. With regret, Catherine and Lawrence Mullins." At 14 minutes, 12 seconds, attached to the email was a family photo from the previous Christmas, before Nathan. I wasn't in it. I had skipped Christmas that year. I read the message 4 times. Then I called the caterer. "I need to cancel 68 seats." She paused and asked, 68? "Are you sure?" I said, "I'm sure." She responded quietly, "I'm so sorry." At 14 minutes, 26 seconds, I hadn't expected kindness from a stranger. After hanging up, I sat in my car and cried for 20 minutes. On August 28th, at 14 minutes, 32 seconds, the RSVP deadline passed. I received 0 responses from my side of the family, not even one. Some had opened the invitations. I could see the read receipts. They just never responded. Others didn't even open them. My brother never sent his RSVP. He didn't text, call, or write. Nothing at all. On September 3rd, at 14 minutes, 51 seconds, I met with the venue coordinator at Fairmount Park Horticulture Center. "We need to adjust the seating," I told her. She pulled up the floor plan. The venue capacity was 150. We had originally planned for 82 guests from Nathan's side and 68 from mine. At 15:06, she asked softly, "How many seats would you like removed from your side?" "All of them," I replied. "Leave the chairs. Just leave them empty." She glanced at me. "We could rearrange Nathan's guests to make things look more balanced." "No," I said. "Keep the left side exactly as it is. 34 empty chairs. I want to see them." She looked at me as though I was punishing myself. Maybe I was. But I needed the truth to be visible. September 13th, 2025. The night before the wedding. My phone stayed silent. No call from my mother. No message from my father. My brother's Instagram was filled with his usual posts: gym pictures, food, sunsets. Nothing about me. Nothing about tomorrow. Nathan came home at 11:47 p.m. after an overnight shift. He found me sitting on the couch, staring at my phone. He sat beside me without speaking and simply took my hand. "We can cancel," he said finally. "We can go to City Hall on Monday, just the 2 of us." "No," I answered. "I want the wedding. I want them to know what they chose." He kissed my forehead. "Okay, then we'll do it your way." At 11:43, my phone rang. "Mom," I answered. "Melinda, it's not too late to cancel," she said. "Think about what you're doing to this family. Don't embarrass us like this." She hung up before I could respond. I listened to the message 3 times before accepting the truth. She really wasn't coming. September 14th, 2025, 4 p.m. I was alone in the bridal suite. No mother to help me into my dress. No bridesmaids from my side. The venue coordinator, Sarah, helped zip up the back. "You look stunning," she said. "Thank you." I stared at myself in the mirror. A white dress from David's Bridal, $1, 200. My hair had been styled by someone who stayed quiet, sensing I didn't want conversation. I had done my own makeup because I didn't trust myself not to cry if someone else handled it. I looked beautiful. I looked alone. I checked my phone one last time. 0 messages. Then I turned it off. 4:02 p.m. The doors opened. A string quartet began playing Canon in D, the piece I had chosen 6 months earlier, back when I believed my father would walk me down the aisle. I stood at the entrance and looked out. On the left side, 34 empty chairs. 34 untouched programs resting on seats. 34 name cards at reception tables that would never be used. On the right side, Nathan's guests, standing and smiling. 82 people who loved him. His parents sat in the front row, working class, warm, present. His mother was already crying. Nathan stood at the altar in a navy suit. When he saw me, his expression changed. His lips moved. I couldn't hear him, but I knew what he said. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I started walking. 90 feet. No father. No brother. No one to hold my arm and reassure me I was making the right decision. Just me, white heels aching, a bouquet clutched too tightly, and 34 empty chairs watching like silent witnesses. Every step felt like a choice. Every empty chair reflected one they had made. Still, I kept walking. When I reached him, Nathan took my hands. They were trembling, both of ours. The officiant, Reverend Patricia Ockoy, someone Nathan knew through community work, began the ceremony. We had written our own vows. Nathan spoke first. His voice broke midway. "I don't have much," he said, "but what I do have is yours, my time, my hands, my life. I see you, Melinda. I've always seen you." I was crying too hard to stop. Then it was my turn. "You are enough," I whispered. "You have always been enough. And I choose you, today and every day after." The officiant smiled through tears. "You may kiss the bride." Nathan gently cupped my face and kissed me as if we weren't standing in a room with 34 empty chairs, as if it were only the two of us. For one perfect moment, the emptiness didn't matter. The reception began at 4:35 p.m. in the same venue but a different room. Table 3, front left. 8 place settings, each with calligraphy name cards: Catherine, Lawrence, Andrew, Aunt Patricia, Uncle Douglas, Cousin Emily, my mother's best friend Helen, and my father's colleague, Professor Winters. 8 empty seats. Perfect arrangements. Flowers untouched. Champagne glasses never lifted. Plates that would never hold food. Nathan's family tried to fill the silence with warmth. His mother, Diane, hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "You're our daughter now," she said. "You've always been enough for us." I smiled, but my eyes drifted back to table 3. I couldn't help it. Every hour, I looked at that empty table twice. It felt like a wound that refused to close. 6:33 p.m. First dance. Can't help falling in love. 3 minutes and 2 seconds. Nathan held me as we swayed. I could feel his heartbeat against mine. "I thought they'd come," I whispered. "I know, baby. I know." We kept dancing. The empty table seemed to watch us. When the song ended, we continued swaying for 5 more seconds. This is it, I thought. This is our life now, just us. I believed I had accepted it. Or at least, I thought I had. 7:23 p.m. Dessert was being served. The cake had already been cut. Nathan was speaking with his uncle near table 8 when suddenly someone screamed, "Richard! Richard! Someone help!" I turned. A man, maybe 62, one of Nathan's former patients, had collapsed near the dessert station. His wife knelt beside him, shaking his shoulder. Everyone froze. "Call 911," someone shouted. Nathan was already moving. He crossed the room in seconds and dropped to his knees beside the man. His entire demeanor shifted, from wedding guest to something else entirely, something I had never seen before. "Someone call 911, he said, his voice cutting cleanly through the chaos. "Inform them. 62-year-old male, possible MI, at a wedding reception in Horticulture Center." He immediately checked the man's pulse and airway, his hands moving with flawless precision. A woman rushed over, one of Nathan's guests, someone I had been introduced to earlier but couldn't recall. She was dressed in heels and a formal gown, yet moved with confident purpose. "Dr. Cross, I have an AED in my car," she said, already turning to retrieve it. Another man appeared, older and composed. "Nathan, do you want me on compressions?" "Get my medical kit from the back seat of my car and start oxygen if you have it," Nathan instructed. They operated seamlessly, like a well-practiced team that had done this countless times. I stood there, frozen. "Dr. Cross." The woman returned with the AED. "It's ready." Nathan didn't even look up. "Good. Charge to 200. Someone start compressions, 2 inches deep, 100 per minute. Rotate every 2. The EMTs arrived and, upon seeing Nathan, recognition flashed across their faces. "Dr. Cross, we've got it from here, sir. We'll transport to Penn." Nathan stood, his posture composed, his hands at his sides, his expression completely calm. No trace of panic. This was clearly someone who had handled situations like this many times before. Nearby, a woman was filming everything on her phone.
I didn't notice it then.
I was too focused on Nathan, staring at him as if I had never truly seen him before, because I hadn't. This wasn't the man who made eggs in our kitchen. This wasn't the man who fell asleep reading trauma surgery journals. This was someone else, someone everyone else in the room seemed to recognize, except me. The EMTs lifted the man onto a stretcher, and Nathan accompanied them to the hospital. 15 minutes later, he returned at 8:10. I was standing near our table, waiting. "Is he okay?" I asked. "He'll be fine. Stent procedure tonight. Full recovery expected." I stared at him, then looked again. "Everyone kept calling you doctor." Nathan met my gaze and there was a long pause. "I am a doctor." "You said you work security." "I do, hospital security systems, safety protocols. I oversee operations," he explained, then paused. "But I'm also a trauma surgeon, chief of trauma at Penn Medicine." The words didn't make sense. I heard each one clearly, understood them individually, yet together they felt impossible. "You're what?" "A trauma surgeon. Chief." "How long?" 6 years as chief. 12 years total at Penn." "Why didn't you tell me?" He looked at me as if the answer were obvious. "Because you never needed me to be more than I was." I didn't know what to say. We stood there while the reception continued around us, and it hit me. I had fallen in love with someone I didn't actually know. Or maybe I did. Maybe I knew the parts that mattered. But this was something entirely different. "We'll talk later," he said gently. "Right now, we have a wedding to finish." He took my hand and led me back to the dance floor. I followed because what else was I supposed to do? We left at 11 p.m., exhausted and overwhelmed. We didn't check our phones. We simply went home, collapsed into bed, and fell asleep, completely unaware of what was happening online. Amy Palmer, the daughter of the man who collapsed, posted a video at 8:04 p.m., 10 seconds of shaky, vertical phone footage. It showed Nathan kneeling, the nurse rushing in with a ED, someone calling out Dr. Cross, another doctor asking about intubation, Nathan giving clear, authoritative instructions, and the EMTs arriving and deferring to him. "Dr. Cross, we got it from here, sir." The caption read, "OMG. The groom at this wedding just saved my dad's life, and everyone's calling him Dr. Cross. Wedding hero, Dr. Half-Life Raver." By 9 p.m., it had 30,200 views. By 10 p.m., 62,000. By midnight, 340,000. By 6:42 the next morning, when I woke to my phone vibrating nonstop, the video had reached 2.8 million views. On September 15th, I woke up to 47 missed calls, friends I hadn't spoken to in months, college acquaintances, blocked numbers, unknown numbers. I opened TikTok. The video was everywhere, not just Amy's original post, but reposts, shares, stitches, reaction clips, and a flood of comments pouring in. Wait, that's Dr. Nathan Cross from Penn, someone said. He's a legend in trauma surgery. He performed my sister's emergency operation back in 2021 and saved her life. He's considered one of the best surgeons on the East Coast. The Cross protocol is now taught in medical schools. The man is truly brilliant. I kept scrolling. The comments went from hundreds into the thousands. Twitter was even more intense. Dr. Cross was trending, ranking number 3 in Philadelphia. I shook Nathan awake. Nathan, wake up. It's everywhere. The video is everywhere. He sat up, glanced at my phone, then at his own. His face drained of color. Oh no. By 10:22 a.m., Penn Medicine had issued an official statement. Dr. Nathan Cross had been serving as Chief of Trauma Surgery and Medical Director of the Philadelphia Trauma Network since 2019. The statement emphasized his contributions to emergency medicine, including the Cross Protocol for assessing multi-trauma cases, noting that his work had saved countless lives. They expressed pride in having him as part of the Penn medicine community. Major outlets quickly picked it up. Philly.com, NBC Philadelphia, and the local ABC affiliate all reported on it. Medical Twitter amplified the news. Former residents he had trained, nurses who had worked alongside him, and attending physicians who had collaborated with him all began sharing their experiences. By 2 p.m., Dr. Nathan Cross was trending nationwide. My phone wouldn't stop ringing, so I turned it off. Still, the comments kept pouring in. Eventually, I made the mistake of reading them. Dr. Cross saved my daughter after she fell 4 stories in 2023. We owe him everything. I trained under Dr. Cross as a trauma resident. He's the best surgeon and teacher I've ever known. My brother went into cardiac arrest twice during surgery. Dr. Cross brought him back both times. He just turned 30 last month. He's alive because of this man. There were more than 400 patient testimonials within the first 24 hours. A Reddit thread on r/Philadelphia gained over 3,200 upvotes and more than 18,000 shares on Facebook. I sat at the kitchen table and cried. I had no idea. I truly had no idea who I had married. Or maybe I had known all along, but never had the words to understand it. My mother began calling at 1 p.m., 11 calls between 1 o'clock and 4:30. My father emailed me at 2:47 p.m. with the subject line, "Urgent family matter." I didn't open it. My brother sent an Instagram DM at 3:15 p.m. "Melinda, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I'm so sorry." I read it, but I didn't respond. On September 16th, my mother's world began to unravel. Colleagues from her faculty started asking questions. "Catherine, I saw a video. Is that Melinda's husband, the trauma surgeon?" In the Penn Economics Department lounge, people whispered among themselves. I had no idea her son-in-law was Nathan Cross. He spoke at our medical ethics symposium last year. Brilliant man. At a private school board meeting, my mother entered, and the room fell silent. Everyone had already seen the video. At her country club tennis group, her usual partners began asking pointed questions. The carefully constructed life she had built, based on appearances, social connections, and status, was collapsing, and everyone was watching it happen. On September 17th at 9:22 a.m., someone leaked my mother's email. It appeared to come from a distant cousin, possibly Aunt Patricia's daughter, someone burdened by guilt. The screenshot was posted to Twitter, showing the full text, including the subject line, signature, and timestamp. "We cannot in good conscience attend." By the end of the day, it had been retweeted 68,000 times. The comments were harsh and unrelenting. Imagine boycotting your daughter's wedding because her husband saves lives for a living. This email is going to follow them forever. People called a trauma surgeon a departure from family values, highlighting the irony. BuzzFeed published an article. The Huffington Post followed. Local news outlets picked it up. The internet quickly uncovered my mother's LinkedIn profile, and comments began appearing there as well. I didn't have to do anything. The truth spoke loudly on its own. From September 18th through the 25th, Nathan and I traveled to the Adirondacks, a quiet cabin with no cell service, a wood-burning stove, hiking trails, and stillness. We spent time talking, really talking. On the third day, sitting on the porch with coffee in his hand and tea in mine, I finally asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" The woods were completely silent. "Because you saw me," he replied. "You truly saw me. Not the credentials, not the title, not what I've achieved or what I can do. Just me. And I didn't want to lose that." "You wouldn't have lost it," I said. "Maybe not," he admitted. "But I've spent my entire adult life as Dr. Cross, the chief of trauma, the surgeon behind the Cross Protocol, the person everyone calls when everything goes wrong. It's meaningful work, important work, but it's exhausting to always be that person." He looked at me and added, "You met me in a hospital waiting room at 2 in the morning. I was dressed in a security uniform when I met you. I brought you a sandwich, and you spoke to me as though I were simply another person, no expectations, no preconceived judgments, just someone working the night shift. You never told me the truth. I didn't lie. I merely chose not to correct the assumptions you made, and yes, that was wrong. I understand that now. But, Melinda, for the first time in my adult life, someone valued me for who I truly am, not for what I could accomplish. I wanted to hold on to that feeling, even if it meant being selfish. I stayed silent for a long while. "I'm still angry," I finally admitted. "I know," he replied gently, "but I understand." He reached out and took my hand, and we remained there together until the sun disappeared below the horizon. On September 24th, we drove back to Philadelphia. When I turned my phone back on, it showed 340 missed calls. I switched it off again, without hesitation. October passed quickly, and the viral video gradually faded as newer stories took its place. The internet moved on, but the consequences for my family lingered. My mother's roles on charity boards became increasingly uncomfortable as people began questioning her judgment and values. My father's colleagues never confronted him directly, yet subtle remarks and quiet tensions persisted. My brother kept his distance from everyone. They attempted to reach out through emails, phone calls, and letters, but I chose not to respond to any of them. Nathan returned to his demanding schedule, 80-hour weeks filled with trauma surgeries, teaching residents, and managing the trauma network. I returned to my own job as well. My colleagues had seen the video. Unsure of what to say, they remained silent. Life continued, but it was no longer the same. I could not return to how things used to be, before I knew the truth about Nathan, and before my family revealed their own. Everything had changed. On November 8, 2025, at 7:12 p.m., my phone rang. It was my mother. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the decline button before I finally answered. "Melinda," she said, her voice trembling, "it's your father. He collapsed at a faculty event. They're taking him to Penn Presbyterian. It's his heart. Please come. I need you." She was crying. I looked over at Nathan, who was already reaching for his keys. "Let's go," he said. We arrived at Penn Presbyterian ER waiting room at 8:20 p.m. My mother stood there, still wearing her cashmere coat from the event, her makeup streaked and her hands visibly shaking. When she saw me, she broke down completely. "Melinda, I know you're angry. I know what we did was—"
"Mom, not now."
"Where is he?" I interrupted. We waited in silence. Other faculty members were present. They recognized me, but avoided eye contact. My mother and I did not speak. At 9:15 p.m., a nurse approached us and informed us that Mr. Mullins was in surgery and that Dr. Cross was operating. My mother's face went pale at the mention of Nathan. "Yes, Dr. Cross is the chief of cardiothoracic surgery on call tonight," the nurse confirmed. "Your husband is in excellent hands." My mother sank into a chair. I sat across from her, and for 90 minutes, we remained silent. Eventually, she whispered, "The man we— oh God. Melinda, what have we done?" At 11:47 p.m., the operating room doors opened. Nathan stepped out in scrubs, visibly tired but composed. Mrs. Mullins, Melinda, your husband is stable. We performed an emergency coronary bypass. He will recover. My mother rose to her feet, tears streaming down her face.
You saved him, she said.
We did our job, Nathan replied calmly. He will need cardiac rehabilitation and lifestyle adjustments, but the prognosis is good. Her voice trembled as she spoke again. After everything we said and did to you, and you still. Mrs. Mullins, I'm a doctor, Nathan said firmly, but respectfully. I took an oath. I don't decide who deserves care. She began crying once more. Nathan then looked at me, and in his eyes I saw exhaustion, and something deeper, a quiet sadness, not for himself, but for me. On November 9th at 1:08 a.m., my father regained consciousness in ICU room 4. After being informed of what had occurred and who had saved his life, he asked to see Nathan. Between rounds, Nathan visited briefly. I was wrong, my father admitted weakly, surrounded by the steady beeping of machines. Completely wrong. I don't know how to. Mr. Mullins, focus on your recovery. We can address everything else later, Nathan interrupted. You once said I was nobody, my father added. Yes, you did, Nathan replied. I don't deserve your forgiveness, my father said, his eyes filling with tears. No, you don't, Nathan responded calmly. But that is between you and your daughter. My responsibility was to keep you alive, and I did that. With that, Nathan left. My father lay there staring at the ceiling, knowing he would physically recover, but also aware that the weight of his actions would remain with him. Throughout November and December, my family made repeated attempts to reconnect. My mother sent 8 emails and 3 handwritten letters. My father left 12 voicemails after being discharged. My brother texted on November 15th, simply saying, I miss you. On November 20th, my mother sent a 5-page apology letter, expressing deep regret and acknowledging how they had judged Nathan unfairly and abandoned me on my most important day. She asked if we could slowly rebuild, on my terms. I read everything but replied to nothing for 5 weeks. On December 12th, I finally texted my mother, coffee on Monday, just the two of us. On December 18th at 2:30 p.m., we met at Rittenhouse Brew, Neutral Ground. She ordered tea, but never touched it. I ordered coffee and drank about half over the course of 32 minutes while she apologized and cried. She offered no excuses this time, no justifications, no attempts to explain it away. I listened, then set clear boundaries. There would be no return to a normal relationship, not yet and possibly never. No shared holidays. No unsolicited advice about my life. No expectations that we would move past what happened. And she would always show Nathan respect. She agreed without argument and did not ask for more. That, in itself, was the first genuine step she had taken in months. On December 25th, Christmas, my parents invited us to a large family gathering. I declined. Instead, we spent the day with Nathan's family in their South Philly row home. 14 people filled a small space, laughter echoing through the house. His mother cooked too much lasagna, his father watched football, and their dog, Chester, stole food from the counter. It was loud, chaotic, and warm. It felt like home. At 6 p.m., my phone buzzed. Merry Christmas. We miss you. I read the message, but did not respond. Not yet. On December 31st, 2025, Nathan and I stayed in quietly, sharing champagne and reflecting on the year, everything that had changed. Do you think I should forgive them? I asked. I think you should do whatever helps you sleep at night, he replied. We watched fireworks from our window as the Philadelphia skyline lit up. A new year began, new boundaries, a new life. At midnight, I kissed Nathan, reaffirming the choice I made every day. People often ask if I forgave my family. The truth is, I didn't, and I didn't need to. Forgiveness is not a requirement for peace. Boundaries are. My family made their choices, prioritizing status over character, appearances over love, and pride over their own daughter. I made mine. The man they once dismissed as nobody, the security guard they looked down on, turned out to be everything they failed to recognize. He saw me when I had nothing to prove. He loved me for who I was, not who my family expected me to be. He saved my father's life after my father had spent months trying to separate us. That is who Nathan Cross truly is, not just a renowned surgeon, not just the creator of a protocol, not just someone responsible for saving countless lives. He is simply Nathan, the man who brought me a sandwich at 2 in the morning, who held my hand when everyone else walked away, and who stood beside me as I walked down that long aisle past 34 empty chairs. That year taught me something important. Some wounds never fully heal, some do, and some leave behind scars.
And that's okay.
I chose the person who recognized my worth before the world ever did. That was enough. That is my story, and I would choose it again, without hesitation.